I tend to avoid covering exploits on this channel, so even if I will sometimes reference them here and there, in fairness I made a whole video discussing what I consider an exploit, I still personally believe that this one specific exploit, it just ticks way too many boxes for being a fun thing to talk about. For one, while technically true that it does provide instant colonization in EU4, it's actually not that strong, like at all, in a practical sense. So I'm not exactly going to be enabling any insane cheated game or things of that nature, because the exploit itself doesn't exactly let you have all of North America by 1500. Well, I mean, it does. It does literally let you have all of North America by 1500, but be ready to pay the price either in dip points or advent points, or a combination of both as well, if you're not ready to pay it at the time. Also, I want to cover this exploit, if you will, since it reveals cool quirks about Paradox code that's not been patched for many patches now, and, well, it's also just a very simple and fun exploit to do in my opinion. So, enough talking, let's get into it, right? Well, before we do jump straight into it, I do have to interrupt myself and ask for the usual stuff. A like on the video would be appreciated, and a subscription would be amazing if you haven't already. We again have been crushing it recently, so if we can keep it up, that would be amazing. 14k, here we come. Right, enough self-shitting, let's load into the game and explain what I mean. Right, so here we are in Portugal. I've given myself the first 3 ideas within exploration, and I've revealed the entire map just to make life a little bit easier. What we're going to go ahead and do now is, when we have a province selected and we're going to colonize it normally, we're going to be sending a colonist out. And this is important when you do this, when on this map, when on this menu, and again, let me just set it up to on pause and so on. We're going to get some random events. Make sure you keep this menu open. Yeah, Jesus lived among beggars, and yeah, the usual stuff. Yep, Marley's declining, everyone else is having a bad time. Right, but the important thing is, while you're waiting for this colonist to arrive, make sure that you keep this box open. There's a lot of notifications, There we go. So let's now, okay, comet sighted. What an amazing stroke of luck. 30th of January, getting a comet comet sighted. Classic Paradox moment. Anyway. What we've done now is that when this colonist has arrived, we've got some fun graphical issues with the unknown trade good here. That's normally this isn't a thing. This is pretty new. But basically, what happens is when the colonist arrives and we have the province selected, we're actually going to open this province interface. And normally we can't see this province interface conventionally. Now, this province interface is somewhat unique in the sense that we can't ever get back to it. And while this is cool, we can't really do much with the province because we don't have a core on it. In fact, no one has a core on it. So this means that we can't really build any buildings here as well because we haven't unlocked any building slots. If this was a grassland, we still wouldn't be able to build buildings here. We can technically go to the production phase, but then I'll click off this province and bad things will happen. So we can't, even if we had production phase open, we won't be able to build things like a university that will do -1 building slots or whatever. There's really not much you can do this in menu. And you could always get to here, but again, there's just nothing you can do on it. You can't exploit development because you haven't caught it. You can't dev it, anything of that nature. You can increase autonomy if you really care. You can also preemptively add it to a trade company. That's not anything new. You could just do that through the trade menu here. Again, I'm not clicking on it because I want to not click off this menu. So why do I want to stay very much on this menu? Well, because some buttons, and more specifically this one, is technically available to us. Now, initially you can see that we cannot create client states in overseas provinces. That is correct. But we also need DipTech 23 to create client states. And this is where the fun begins. Because we don't. See, if we go ahead and grab mercenary ideas followed by influence ideas, so yes, for Portugal this basically requires a 3-idea setup, we can go ahead and grab the Client State Act, which will allow us to create client states early, and you can probably see where this is going. I should probably take the stab hit by now, shouldn't I? What that does mean is that if we, for example, moved our capital to Ceuta, and then did the exact same thing, and had to, well, again, wait for this guy to actually arrive, there's a lot of issues. Oh, of course, you get crisis of the Maghreb because the capital's in. That is one side consequence of that of those actions. Well, when this colonist does eventually arrive on this menu, the game doesn't prevent us from creating a client state here. And this is where the other fun and games begin. See, when we create this client state, another mechanic in the game is that your capital can't ever be uncolonized. Normally, this only works where, let's say you're playing Portugal, and colonizing 2 provinces and you get full annexed. Your capital is going to move to any other colonies you have that are finished, but if none of them are finished, it's going to move to an uncompleted colony. And the neat mechanic that Paradox thought about that is, well, you can't be colonizing your capital, so capitals get instantly colonized. And this is where the second part of this fun exploit comes in. Because, of course, this client state has now immediately colonized this province. This province is now fully colonized, the client state has a core on it, and so on and so on. We can go ahead and spend a bunch of stab and get rid of our subject, you know, and so on, to basically kill it if we really want to. Very expensive, but doable. But more importantly, it's freed our colonists back up again to go ahead and do this. So again, if we want to keep going, there's nothing preventing us, well, waiting for the next colonist to arrive. I should probably be doing this on speed 5, shouldn't I? I don't really know. I'm not doing this on speed 5. I guess we'll get spammed with events even more if we did. But let's get to this thing done. There we go. There's absolutely nothing else preventing from, well, creating this again. And then you can go ahead and do the client state trick. How do you click off this menu again? There it is, there's the X. Oh, it's been blind. But yeah, when you're back on this menu, the reason this second pop turns up is that you can technically add this province to another client state. Now, this wouldn't be their capital, so you can still keep colonizing if you give it to another client state. Bear in mind, your colonists, they don't have infinite money, your client states, so they will go bankrupt and abandon their colonies. Or you can just create a brand new one. The issue, of course, with creating a brand new client state is, well, these are going to start adding up to your dip relation slots, which is going to be a bit problematic for you. See, it's instantly colonized, but you now have 2 client states that are, well, adding to your dip relation slots. And that's not great. So we have another alternative. And that alternative is, of course, countries like Venice, or anyone that can establish trade posts. So again, here I've given Venice exploration ideas, as well as their colonist. And I've also removed Naples for, you know, demonstration purposes. Now, if we were to do the exact same thing as, well, assuming this is a normal colony place and we send our colonist out, when the guy arrives, we're going to have some fun buttons. More specifically, we can go ahead and create a trading city. Now, I've gave myself Tech 32, so I have the option of client state as well. But we can go ahead and create a trade city. Now, be careful with this, because yes, this does colonize the province, but be aware that when you do this, you can't set up multiple trade cities inside the same trade node. What I mean by this is, if I send out another colonist, who's going to arrive, and we get an agricultural revolution as well as 50 billion events. Thank you, Paradox. We go ahead and want to create another trade city. We can't, because we can only have one trading city in the same trade node. Now, this does apply for if you want to, well, let's just recall this one, abandon this one, and get some permanent navies going. This is the issue, giving yourself Tech 32 at the console. Get ready for all of the price change events. Well, when you do get the this province here, you can, as you can see, create another trading city inside this new trade node, but you can't do it inside the same node. So it's very limited in that extent as well. Furthermore, bear in mind, they are your trade cities, so they're part of your trade league and so on, so forth, but they don't exactly become your vassals. For that, you may want to do something like the Lubeck mission tree that turns your trade cities into your actual subjects. So it's something to consider. Another thing that's cool to consider is, unlike having to move your capital to the New World, if you were to colonize with the New World using this exploit, you don't kind of need to do that with trade cities. This is going to take us 202 days, but if we were to, you know, just send a colonist over to Miami and gain a bunch of nationalism CBs, because of course I had to give myself maps over the entire world. You know what, I'm not going to support the Swedish for their independence. I'm good, you know. I feel like the Swedish have this one in the bag. I'll let them have this one. The nice thing, of course, about doing Tech 32 is everyone's scared of declaring war on you, so demonstrations are a bit easier. Although, again, you have to sit through all the events. Anyway, here we have it. We've arrived at the Miami province, and we could go ahead and create a trade city yet again. And there it is. Again, this is now instantly colonized, but bear in mind that this is, well, not even on your continent, so you're going to have to fight it properly to actually grab it this time, if that makes sense. Right, so where is this most useful? Well, if you're ever playing in Africa, you can get a colonist usually from your missions. For example, this mission here gives the Congolese a colonist, meaning that if you play the Congo and, you know, actually go exploration expansion, you can use some client state shenanigans to colonize a lot faster than you normally can, especially if you want to quickly fill in these holes between these colonies for your Congo campaigns. It's an exploit, absolutely, but it's probably one of the more useful places to use it. It would also be really useful if you hypothetically made a video talking about how terrible this country is, and then promised to play it to the 1,000 subscribers, and you're getting awfully close and worried. But weirdly enough, the real place for it to shine is, I'd actually argue, Ashikaga. Thing is, yes, you do have to get all 3 ideas, but a colonial Japan gameplay is a pretty common type of game. And if you're playing as Ashikaga, well, influence ideas aren't necessarily a bad thing. In fact, they're quite good for you given how many subjects you have. So not only is it a nice vassal swarm, if you go for a colonial gameplay with Ashikaga, you'll be able to spam client states all around here into your colonies within, well, Asia. There's a bunch of Siberia for you to colonize for free. And the actual colony ideas are not going to waste, as you're able to colonize into the New World, or even move your capital there if you really care about doing that. The other thing to bear in mind, of course, is that with the setup, you aren't going to be getting an infinite amount of client states. That's not quite how the Ashikaga government works. They're not going to be shogun governments. but still it's a nice addition to have, since your normal subjects don't take any diploration slots anyway, and you're going to be gaining extra diploration slots from influence ideas. So it's a nice way of actually being able to use those diploration slots. It really speeds up your colonization, and frankly is quite helpful in that regard. So I think Chicago is probably the best one to use it, because again, not only are they able to use it within the domains of, well, Siberia, you're also able to still use this to quickly colonize quite a lot of good land within the Indochina area. I mean, this land is great to colonize. Great trade nodes, great trade goods, good money to be had all around. So feel free to find state to your leisure. Bear in mind, though, as a Chicago, you may want to annex at least one of your immediate neighbors so you have access to a port that's connected to your capital. Otherwise, you're a touch landlocked. Anyway, with that all said, that is all I have time for today. A big thank you to all the people that support me over at Ko-Fi, with a special thank you to Ark and Solar.